Hey, it's Jordan, joined by Jonathan Howe. You are the Libertarian candidate who is running in New York's 14th district. Unfortunately, had to drop out recently due to a whole lot of shenanigans. This is AOC's district. I've had you on before. For people that didn't see it, briefly describe your ordeal. You got enough signatures, then it was invalidated, and what ultimately resulted in you dropping out.
Yeah, so it's a little more complicated than that. Again, I'm Jonathan Howe, not to be confused with Matthew Howe, who's also being screwed out of ballot access in North Carolina.
Sorry for mispronouncing. Go ahead.
It's all good. So to get on the ballot in New York, if you're an independent candidate, you need 3,500 signatures. You get 6 weeks to do it. If you're a Republican or Democrat, you only need 1,200 signatures. That's an interesting place to start from. But you have 3,500. You need 3,500. You get 6 weeks. I was about 2.5 weeks into my 6 weeks. I was on track to make it. I had about 1,500 signatures at that point. And then the court that was handling the redistricting here in New York that had thrown out the maps told, without any warning, they told all third-party candidates, stop, throw out all those signatures, they're now invalid, and start again in about 2.5 weeks. We're setting a new calendar. Now, I had already taken off, I had cleared my calendar so I could do this. I'm a public defender in Bronx County Court. It's very difficult for me to just take off time, here and there willy-nilly. I have to plan this out a long time ahead of time. So I had planned out my petitioning schedule. I'd taken off, work so that I could be out getting signatures. And I got, almost 1,000 just on my own. So when they threw them all out and they said, here's a new period to go petition, it was essentially from that point on, it was impossible for me to get on the ballot. I didn't have the time. My volunteers were not going to be in town. I had people coming to stay with me to do this. I had family coming, and none of them were in the new period. So it became pretty much impossible. We tried some lawsuits. We tried to appeal to try to get the old signatures to count, because if I could get those to count, I could probably get the other 2,000 with the time that I had. But those were rejected, and we did not get the 3,500. It's interesting. I got some texts recently from members of other parties, not the Libertarian Party, who said, why didn't you just file what you had and just hope that no one checked it? Because if no one challenges it, you can get on the ballot. And honestly, I did think about that. Like, I looked into that. I would have to sign my name and say that I know that there are 3,500 signatures in this. And I knew there weren't. And I'm not going to start my political career off on a lie, although that seems to be the way that it usually goes. But I refused to do that. I wasn't interested in doing that. So I did not submit a petition. I didn't submit any signatures. I probably had about 2,500 by the time I was done. Again, I'm confident I could have gotten it, but because of the way it was all changed, the way it was screwed around, didn't make it. The interesting thing is, I definitely have enough to get on if I had run as a Republican or Democrat. They only need 1,200. They only need to get 1,200, and they actually got a second chance to do it if they didn't get enough. This is in the same ruling that screwed me over and all other third-party candidates. The Republicans and Democrats got a second chance to gather signatures, and they got a 10% discount on how many they needed on the second time around. So that's why you're hearing all these stories about people like de Blasio running out of the blue, even though he didn't run initially, because they were given a second bite at the apple on the newly drawn districts. And just to build off that, 2 years ago, Cuomo increased the number of signatures needed for statewide candidates as well. So if you're running for governor or for senator or for anything like that, if you're an independent, you need 45,000. If you're a Republican or Democrat, you need 15,000. And unfortunately, the Libertarian Party, it looks like we submitted about 43,200.
And what is the reason they give that the independent candidates, third-party candidates, need double as the Democrats or Republicans?
Well, they're not established parties. That's their main reason. And essentially they're saying, because Democrats have to get signatures from Democrats, that's much harder. Now they have, lists of them. They can go right to their houses. They know where they are. It's a very different scenario, but they're saying, Democrats can only get Democrat signatures, so they should only need about a third as many. I think that's the only justification they give. I think it should be the exact opposite. It should be easier for smaller parties to get on and establish themselves. This is really just a way for them to protect themselves. But it's just interesting that during COVID is when Cuomo snuck in the provision to triple the number needed for third parties. He got it into the COVID emergency. I think it was in the budget, actually. He snuck that provision in. It's something he'd been trying to do for years to increase the limit. So the Libertarian Party this year, I think we submitted double what we did 4 years ago when we submitted a gubernatorial candidate. And we got on that time. And we did not get on this time.
So tripled the number for third-party signatures, but halved the number of old people who died in nursing homes to conceal it. You see how that works?
Yeah, it's almost quite a legacy here.
Yeah, but it's amazing. I mean, I'm not a libertarian, but regardless, when I hear people pushing for third parties, which I'm not against, but I also say, like, you gotta not be too high on hopium, because the fact is there's so many obstacles. But in Matthew Ho's case, in your case, the very people adjudicating whether you could get on the ballot in most cases are partisan Democrats or Republicans, whether it's the Board of Elections, which is supposed to be neutral, but give me a break, or the governors.
It's bipartisan, not neutral. It's bipartisan, Republican and Democrat. That's
Right.
not neutral to me. That's very opposed to me.
So it's rigged basically at multiple levels. I mean, you could get
and look, obviously it's not just about the Libertarian Party. I think Howie Hawkins submitted a petition. He submitted signatures. I don't believe he's going to be on the ballot. He was running as the Green Party. I know the Forward Party had considered running a candidate this year. When they saw the signature requirement go up, they said, no way, like that's not. When they saw it hold up in court, they said, no way, we're not going to get a candidate on. They endorsed Barry Sharp, the Libertarian candidate, but it wasn't much more than that. It was just words. There was a lot of talk from people in Forward, a lot of talk from people in the Movement for the People's Party about we need to fight for ballot access. We need to support third parties in general. I was a little disappointed in the turnout. I got a lot of libertarians helping me, and locally here in Queens, I got a lot of Green Party people helping me. But these new parties, not much really happened. And look, I have to earn that. I have to earn volunteers coming out and helping. But if you're saying that your purpose is to help third parties get on the ballot, and that was essentially what the Forward Party's platform was this year. It was all election reform stuff. But other than just words, it wasn't much more than that.
Mm-hmm. And can you kind of talk about, was AOC involved in this at all? I mean, did she ever comment on?
I thought she was commenting the other day when she said that you need to pressure politicians, and that competition is good, and that if a politician is asking you for money, like, know that they're bought out. I thought maybe she was talking about me and saying like, oh, I could use a competitor, but no. I called her office as a constituent and said, it's harder for third parties. What's your position on this? I never got a position. I've tried to reach out to her on social media and a few things, but look, I never considered myself to be running against AOC. I was running for New York 14. She happened to be my congresswoman. Does that help me get a little bit more attention here and there? Yeah, but like that wasn't the point. It wasn't to run against her. I didn't expect a response from any elected Republican or Democrat, but I did think if there was one who cared about this issue of challenging the central powers that run the GOP and the Democrats, it would be her. But no. And did I really think that? No, I'm not so naive to think that politicians aren't about protecting their own job. But I tried to be optimistic.
Right. Absolutely. And politicians are really about. Did it work? There we go. Hold on, I want to try that.
Right out the soundboard. I'm so honored to be the first to experience.
You are. We just upgraded. It costs a lot of money to upgrade for this and some other add-ons. But what's amazing to me is it's possible we're going to have the same choice: Trump versus Biden, two historically unpopular choices on the federal level. Senate level, I mean, you name the state, you got people in there for 30 years, in some cases more, as senators, Congress people. Local level, machines, about machine politics in New York. Yeah, Schumer. So really, if you want to take on the two-party duopoly, I mean, you have to have a fair shake. Through your experience, where you were while working a full-time job as a public defender, taking your time to get the signatures, this and that. What are some lessons to other third-party candidates you would give? What they could do differently, or can we overcome obstacles as far as getting on the ballot and not having courts basically rigging the game, or the Board of Elections rigging the game as you go?
I mean, I know a lot of people roll their eyes at the idea of the Green Party and Libertarians working together, or just progressives in general working with Libertarian, or any of that. But we are just going to let all our opportunities to ever run for office ever again slip away. They're going away in every state If ballot access for all third parties, not just yours, is not your top issue, at this point, what I'm realizing in hindsight is that you're wasting your time. I shouldn't have said a word about the Federal Reserve. I shouldn't have said a word about, choice. I shouldn't have said a word about vaccine mandates. I should have been talking about ballot access, because none of this matters. There's not going to be any third parties on this ballot. Great candidates, far better candidates than me, like MacLeod Howe, are being kicked off the ballot, where he submitted 13,000 or tens of thousands of signatures. I'm complaining about a few thousand. I have a friend, another libertarian, running against Marjorie Taylor Greene, Angela Pence, in Georgia 14. She needs 20,000 signatures in a district that's just slightly larger than mine. These rules are designed to make it impossible. And we get one or two people on the ballot, and we're like, oh, look, we did it. We can rally around it. But that we have to change the system. At this point, unless you are famous or rich, you're not getting on the ballot as a third party. And there's still a chance you might not, even if you are famous or rich. So we are not all focusing on this. And look, if you're a well-meaning Democrat or Republican, you should want the competition too. You should want your candidates to be better, and they're not going to be better if there's no competition against them. And honestly, in most places, the other party, in New York, the GOP is not the competition. They're not a threat. In most parts of New York City, that's not what you should be thinking about. Stop talking about the other stuff until we are able to get on the ballot. Maybe not stop talking about it, but when you're running your campaign, that needs to be the top issue. People don't think about it. People think about the election in October and November. We need to start thinking about it in December and January, because that's when you start planning to get on the ballot. Depending on the state, some of them start in January, some of them start, here in April, and then they get pushed to May halfway through. And we also have to be prepared that the two parties are willing to move the goalpost halfway through. I mean, that's what they did for me. They said, here's your period. Oh, no, throw everything out. Here's your period now. So they are willing to do that, and we got to be prepared for it. They're going to be willing to screw us over until we have a little bit of, beachfront. And that will be doing, ballot access reform. There's no reason people should be signing physical signatures in 2022, especially right after COVID, for people to get on the ballot. There's no reason, in our state, it's free, but in other states, you have to do, $5,000, $10,000 filing fees. There's no reason for that. Let people lose at the ballot box. What are you doing, Bernie? I changed to a Democrat for one time in my life so I could vote for him in the New York primary. I did that. And wow, man, I'm not super proud of that.
We got to ask, what's he doing on a lot of things, right? Says enough. He said he wouldn't challenge Biden in 2024, and he was invited over for dinner with Biden the next night. Look at that. Thank you, Jonathan Howe, public defender, was running as a libertarian in New York, 14th district. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.